In this video, we're going to take a look at the BBC Symphony Orchestra piano. This particular video is going to focus on the core library only. We're going to take a look at each control, what it is, and how it works. So starting in the top left-hand corner of the plugin, we have the LED light. When this is flickering red and green, it is an indication that your samples are still loading into the memory of your machine. Wait until this is solid green before you hit play in your DAW or try and trigger any samples via your keyboard. To the left of this we have the CPU meter, which is an indication of how hard the processor on your machine is working. We then have the disk meter, which is an indication as to how hard the samples drive of your machine is working. If these are flickering red and green, there's a good chance that we need to do some optimizations around your system. Moving to the right, we have the memory meter. This is an indication of how much sample content is preloaded into the RAM of your machine. The voices option to the right is an indication of how many audio threads we're streaming at any particular one point in time. The refresh icon is useful for any sticking MIDI notes, but in the BBC piano library you can also right-click this and you can see there is a number of different options. Moving to the right we have the MIDI channel drop-down menu, which is where we can choose to have any particular MIDI channel for this plugin. We then have a global tuning control, a global panning control, and an overall master volume control. Under the three dots to the right of the master volume, we have another drop-down menu. This is where we can change the behavior of some of the controls. The dynamics option at the top of the preset menu allows us to change the behavior of this fader in the middle of the interface. We can select full velocity range, which means that we can access all dynamic layers of the library when this is set to 0. If we choose one of the compressed options, this means the fader in the middle acts like a MIDI limiter, and you can limit the dynamic response of the library. Velocity map to dynamics isn't really used in this library because it only really works with short articulations, and that is where you can map short articulations to respond to the dynamics fader instead of the velocity of your keyboard. That's more useful in the overall BBC library. The velocity is where we can change the velocity curves that the library responds to. So if you have an overly sensitive keyboard where you trigger dynamics too loudly, you can change this to exponential negative, and vice versa, you could have exponential positive. We then have the ability to reset and clear all default CC mappings. The CC mappings can be shown by right-clicking any control on the user interface. So for example, if I was to remove MIDI CC11 from the expression fader, as we can see it's gone. If I then reset the mappings, we can see that MIDI CC11 is now restored. The short releases option is where we can set the behavior of the release triggers to be timed or untimed. To the right of this, we then have the global settings of the plugin. To learn more about these particular settings, please see the user manual. Below the global settings, we have the expand and collapse toggle. And to the left of this, we have the preset menu. The preset menu can be opened by using the drop-down menu. On the left-hand side, we can see there are filters. When the rest of the BBC Symphony Orchestra is installed, you will see filters for all the different instruments and the different sections. We have a starred button, which enables us to put a preset in this starred filter at the top. We can preview a sound, and we can hover over the information icon to learn more about that particular preset. We can load a preset by double-clicking, and then to the right of this we have the two arrows which allow us to cycle up and down through the preset system. Please note that these work within any filters, so if you only had the strings filter enabled in the global BBC Symphony Orchestra library, they would cycle through only the strings presets. We then have a save option, which is where we can then save a user preset, which will show up in the users filter. Moving down the interface, we have expression, which is an overall volume control which works inside the master volume in the top menu. We have the dynamics fader, which we touched on earlier. It allows you to control the dynamic performance of the library. We then have the knob to the right, and this is by default a reverb control, but can be clicked for further options such as tightness, which allows the user to cut into the start of the sample. So when this is increased, you will get a more snappier response. When this is decreased, you'll hear more of the hammer content, and the performance will be more loose when you quantize this to your grid. We have the pedal volume, which will enable the user to increase the sound of the pedal noises, and the hammer volume, which enables us to increase the sound of the hammers. Within Piano Core, there is only one technique available to us. However, we do have some options in the bottom right hand corner. We have the round robin count, which there is 4. We can reset the round robin count on transport. So this means the round robin cycle will restart every time you hit play in your DAW. The reset from keys enable us to place key switches on the keyboard in order to reset these round robins. So if you have 4 round robins and you assign this to have key switches shown from the top of the keyboard, let's say A6, we can see there are 4 key switches shown, which will enable us to reset the round robin count. That feature is particularly useful if there is a round robin that you want to key switch out. For example, it has a certain artifact in the sound. We have the options which allow us to stack round robins, so we can neighbour zones, which gives us more round robins than just the 4, or we can layer them up for a thicker sound in general. We then have a transpose option, which enables us to transpose the range of the samples up and down. The two-handed layout is not used in this particular version of the library. We then have the FX page, which is all the effects discussed on the knob at the top of the plugin. If you have any further questions about the BBC Symphony Orchestra, the piano or the normal version, please get in touch with us at spitfireaudio.com/support. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Spitfire Clips. Let us know if it was too long, too short, too fast or too slow in the comments down below. Hit like if we answered your question and subscribe for more clips, tips, tricks and exclusive Spitfire content.